Hi there, I'm an anthropologist of religion. I'm working on my PhD at the University of Uppsala. I just have a little comment on my all-time favorite YouTube channel, which is the American linguist Jackson Crawford, who I think sort of misses an important part of the point in his recent talk about why Nordic myths are inconsistent. Where Jackson gets the closest to explaining mythical inconsistency, he's talking about that myths aren't predicated on each other. You know, there isn't a longer narrative consistency that we would expect where, you know, one tale about Thor is consistent with earlier tales and so on. And that's completely right. And it's also correct and right when he says that bits and pieces of myths might come from different contexts, different historic situations and different places and so on. But that's not the point of mythical consistency. And Jackson's examples almost illustrate that it isn't the point, because Batman and James Bond, they are kind of myths in a narrow sense, but they're not myths in the sense that explains mythic consistency. Myths are inconsistent because myths are supposed to be inconsistent. Like, inconsistency almost serves a purpose, or perhaps it's just the fact that that the consistency that we would expect of narratives, that isn't a purpose. Religious meanings and myths, they do very concrete things in a religious situation. They create relating with supernature, or they produce ritual, or they produce metaphors that rituals build on, and so on. And the ways that they do this doesn't acquire narrative consistency. You know, you look at the first two chapters in the Bible. You know, this is two parallel stories of creation, and they're wildly inconsistent. They're so inconsistent that if you just read them, you think it's two different religions talking about two different deities. And religion's just like that. You know, it is inconsistent. If you walk into an Easter Mass and you ask people why they're there, you know, they'll give wildly different explanations. I seek community. I do it to pray for my grandfather who's ill. This is my cultural identity. You know, we just used to do like that. I want to feel close to God. I want to seek redemption for my sins. All these different explanations, you know, if you imagine you could go into one person and sort of dissect the motivations, you'd even find these contradictory motivations inside one person. It's just the way religion is. I studied an Afro-Brazilian religion, which is, in popular terms, is like a kind of voodoo. And if you ask people the most basic question in this religion, like what is a god? They have these Nordic-like gods. They will give these contradictory explanations, like a god is a force of nature, a god is a sacred king from many centuries ago, or the god is my father, the god is my child, the god is my husband, the god is a sexually abusive rapist that takes me into the religious trance. Like, note how these explanations of the most basic matter of this religion are not just inconsistent, they're wildly contradictory. A god can at the same time be a rapist and a child. Why is that? Well, the reason is that these different meanings, they do very different things. Seeing a god as a child enables people to educate the god and shape it in ritual in a certain way. Seeing it as a father makes it a protector, and it relates people to it in that way. You know, now I'm an anthropologist of religion, and often when I see how scholars work on Nordic religion, I feel they're trying to fit things together, or they're trying to find the right explanation and exclude the wrong one. And I don't think, you know, I'm always thinking, like, no, things are supposed to be inconsistent. And Nordic myth is filled with these kind of inconsistencies. In one Eddic poem, the Norns are spinning the threads of fate, right? In another, they're carving it in logs. These are inconsistent images, and they might have served different religious purposes. Maybe they've served ritual purposes. And the contextual differences that Jackson are talking about, you know, they might account for something like that, but it's not the point of mythical inconsistency. Myths are supposed to be inconsistent because their purpose is to produce different religious functions that where narrative consistency isn't one of them. That's just the point I wanted to make. So from beautiful Copenhagen, thank you very much. Bye.